Well, Grant Cardone has just won his defamation case against John Legere, and I had an awesome opportunity to talk to Jerry Malcomn. Jerry is a social media influencer, real estate guy. He knows both Grant Cardone and John Legere, and in fact, it was in his Clubhouse room where he was moderating, where Grant Cardone and John Legere were, where this case erupted. And these statements from John Legere that was the basis of Cardone's lawsuit occurred. All right, now Jerry and I get into the details on the case and also talk about defamation, why this is a win for Cardone, and some of the details of the settlement. Some of them have been reported as early as today. There's some stuff we don't know. I'm sure some of the things are confidential, so we don't know the settlement amount, but we do know some of the details, so we get into that in the conversation. Please enjoy.
It was interesting. It actually happened. It didn't just happen in that one room that you're probably thinking about. This was going on probably for, a couple years, actually.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people know Grant Cardone and John Legere. They're both big public figures, right? And have them in the same Clubhouse room, which is where this, at least a lot of the factual stuff happened, is pretty incredible that he'd be in those rooms together talking about the news as you would do. But, I think Grant is this big public figure. And you got John Legere out there, big public figure, T-Mobile CEO, Grant Cardone, real estate mogul, and starts getting these accusations thrown at him. I mean, what did you think as that happened? And did you think there's going to be a lawsuit coming out of this thing?
That's an interesting question, and I don't think I've ever shared this with Grant, so he's going to hear it here. Matt, when I heard those accusations coming from John Legere, you have to realize that's not just a regular person trolling on a social audio app. That's John Legere, former CEO of T-Mobile. So his words held a lot of weight. And this is the part Grant doesn't know that went through my mind, what I'm about to say right now. I was like, does John Legere know something that we don't know?
Yeah.
The things that he was saying, with the conviction that he was saying it in, and remember, I have some investments with Grant Cardone in some of his properties. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, this is interesting. So yeah, it was a very delicate situation back there to hear, because it kind of started with little slow things going back and forth. And Grant's a Republican. John Legere, he's a Democrat. Grant's not vaccinated. John Legere is vaccinated. So, it was a lot of things that just causing clashes during, the last few years.
Yeah, and I think, the weight of the statements of John Legere, and I think this is where, a lot of people can talk crap about Grant Cardone or other public figures. And I always see Grant Cardone out there as like another version of Donald Trump in many ways. And I mean that in like a good way, in that like he's a big public figure, made his money in real estate, likes to put his opinion out there, can sometimes be controversial. And then there's people that just don't like him. There's people that love him to death. And you could say the same thing about Donald Trump. And what happens is there's people that sometimes I think get a little emotional. I don't know what was going on with John Legere at the time when he made those statements, but some of the stuff he said was pretty nasty, right? And it gets recorded and other people reproducing and getting it out there. And so one thing that I saw, and I shot a video about this after the case went out and, Grant Cardone files his lawsuit, was this is kind of a big move for Grant, because when you do that, when you file a defamation lawsuit, right, you're saying, all right, well, you've already put it out there. You've already said this stuff about me. Now we're going to court to see whether it's true. More public spotlight, discovery, documents, all this information now goes out there to see whether this was actually true or not, because that's what gets it at the heart of the case in defamation is, did you say something untrue that harmed me and caused me damages? And that was what Cardone was basically saying in his case. You said something untrue and it harmed me. Well, John Legere gets to come in from a legal standpoint and defend that and say, if I'm right in what I said, then I'm not responsible. You can't hold me liable. Exactly. That's my defense to this.
Correct. Yes, and that's what made it so interesting. I mean, on Clubhouse or in social audio, there's people that do what it's a term that's called they troll, meaning they'll just say some crazy things. But trolling is usually something you laugh about where you know it's no truth to it. It's just something so crazy. But when those conversations were going on, you could hear a pin drop. I mean, Grant would say things like, bro, you know this is affecting me, and why are you saying this? Like, why are you putting these things out about me? And I got to say this. I actually like John Legere. John Legere and Grant Cardone, we had some of the most wonderful, amazing moments in those rooms. I'm talking about people cried together, people laughed together, people came together during that pandemic. It was like a brotherhood in there. When they were good, they were good. But every now and then, if, like you said, Grant can be, you mentioned something about Grant, some people don't like him. And I believe it's because Grant is unapologetically Grant Cardone. He's bold. He doesn't sugarcoat things. He's going to say what he wants to say. But so I think that's probably that. But
I see this on like the Grant Cardone is I think he's like, he doesn't care if you like him or not. He's just who he's going to be, right? And that's why I just see him in a lot of ways like Donald Trump. He's like, dude, I'm just who I am. You
want to know the interesting thing though about that? The interesting about that though, Matt, is everybody in the room loved him, and I hope John doesn't get upset when he sees
they like
this.
him for that too.
Yes. So we would do polls. Who do you like better, Grant or John? And Grant would always win. So it was a delicate moment. But like I said, we had some very good moments. But when he starts saying those things and the way John speaks very well, he's a very well-trained communicator. So he knows how to say things and make them stick. And I was like, I actually called my brother. I was like, does he know something I don't know? And so, it was interesting. But you mentioned something about, you said the discovery. Now, I thought Grant was exposing himself heavily also. Can you touch on that a little bit? Like how does that really work? Because it seems like if you have something to hide, you're not going to put yourself in the lion's den like that.
Yeah, and I think exactly, and that was a big signal to me because I saw that news kind of coming out, and these allegations against Grant Cardone, and it wasn't just some regular troll. This was John Legere, well-known public figure, executive, had a ton of success, and had done business with Grant Cardone, right? And so it was like, whoa, what is this? And so, but then there was this signal that I saw, which when I shot my first video about this case was, man, Grant's really. He's going for it. You don't go to court. You just, if you got something to hide, right? Because now he's really putting this in the public sphere. We're talking like this, the trial could be televised. But also what happens when you file a lawsuit is there's something called discovery, and you go to court. All the documents and relevant information, recordings, paperwork, whatever it might be, has to be turned over to the other side. And it's what's called discoverable information. And so anything that's at issue in the case, which in this case was really Grant Cardone's whole credibility, all these statements, is he a fraud? Is he not? Is he a con artist? Is he not? All this stuff that, is he a billionaire or not? That's another thing. You're not even a billionaire. All this stuff is like, that all becomes discoverable information, which means Grant Cardone's going to have a huge burden of producing a lot of information in a court of law. Not only that, then you get to depositions and you're getting sworn under oath about everything.
So you got to tell the truth.
Go to trial. It's under penalty of perjury, let alone then you finally get to trial. And the same thing goes for Legere. He's going to have the same burden on all that stuff. So it was I thought Cardone was like throwing down the gauntlet really on the case and saying, all right, let's do this then.
Let's do it, yes.
Let's do it. Let's prove.
What's interesting too, Matt? There's a guy on YouTube, I don't know the guy's name, but it seemed like it's his goal in life to talk about Grant Cardone. It seems like he's really searching for any and everything if it can make Grant Cardone look bad. When he got that information from Clubhouse, that was literally, he went in for a while over that, and he took it as if though they went to court. He was proved guilty, and he was proved everything was true that what Legere said. And I looked at that, and I'm like, this guy is going. He's like, yeah, and he validated the claims based on who John Legere was. A CEO like John Legere is not just going to come out and say this. He knows something we don't know. He had that type of energy on his lives and on his YouTube. Once again, I'm like, is there something I don't know?
Well, yeah, and that's, and let's go over like what defamation is, and I think it's kind of the motivation of why Cardone had to go to court. Really, is it's a untruthful statement that causes someone harm, that's communicated to a third party, that causes someone harm or damages. And here, the amount of damages that can be caused to Grant Cardone goes up a bunch of notches when it's coming from John Legere. If it's some regular troll, on any social media, it's meaningless. There's just no damage to it because people aren't going to take value in it and put value in it. But if Grant Cardone's out raising capital for his businesses, or he's all the services or the products he's selling or events or whatever the things that he's doing out of his companies where he is part of the brand, you could see a lot of damage that can cause him. And that's why, they had a damage claim of over $100 million, right, in this case. And I don't know what happened in the settlement here. There's only speculation we can have there. But there was like speculation. There's a settlement in those numbers. So we don't know what, happened. There's some stuff that's came out in the settlement about some of the things. There's been a couple articles come out on some of the details of it. But in that court of law, right, is we're going to have all this stuff documented, but the damages is what was going to be really big, and that separated this case and John Legere saying it versus the random troll, because the damages could be huge.
Yeah, and about that also, I'm speaking about how I was looking at it, but you got to remember, some days we would have 5,000-10,000 people come through our rooms. These weren't, this is a little different than Instagram or even YouTube. This is live streaming, real-time conversations, okay? So when you have a room like that, they consider that where you have what's called content. So you can have a room with 700 people. Soon as that type of conversation starts, that 700 can go to 1,200 to 1,500. Then you have spin-off rooms. Then you have 5-10 of those going on each week about what they talked about. Mm-hmm. So I can just imagine what some of those people were thinking about when those claims was made, because like you said, some people that hate on Grant, they're just looking for a reason to have some type of confirmation that Grant is this or he's that. But as far as the money goes, I've been hearing a little something behind the scenes too. I may have a little secret information I'm not going to reveal though. but I can. Well, let me ask you as an attorney. Let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Someone who is a notable figure and they have the money to defend themselves, is a public apology almost like an admission of wrongdoing or admission of guilt, or I don't want to use the word confirmation, but is it kind of nudging towards it must have been some type of settlement?
Yeah, obviously there's a settlement there that was reached, very clear. There's a Business Review article about this. It's got a little bit of details on it that came out just recently. But one of the terms typically in a settlement like this, where someone says something defamatory, is you'll say, well, you got to go apologize and set the record straight, right? Because everything else in the settlement agreement is typically confidential. A lot of times you're going to have a settlement agreement in a case and say, well, this is confidential. You can't disclose the amount if there's an amount paid. You can't disclose certain other terms. But you at least got to publicly apologize and kind of take back the statement that you said, which is that apology we saw earlier this week from John Legere to Grant Cardone. There's a picture of them together right after mediation. There's some statements from some of their lawyers that were made, and even the mediator in the case, about it, and but they're not getting into details, of course. But one of the things that was interesting too is John Legere just invested in one of Grant Cardone's deals, his real estate deal that has a Bitcoin associated with it.
Wait a minute, is that recent? Is that recent?
Yes, it's in this Business Review article.
I didn't know
came out
that
today.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, That's interesting. The plot thickens. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, so John Legere just invested into one
Yeah.
of Grant Cardone's projects.
Correct. Yes.
Interesting. The theme on Clubhouse was like that probably would not happen.
Yeah.
And investment into one of those vehicles. But like I said, Matt, this was going on for a couple years. I mean, I like John Legere a lot. A lot. He's a very, very good guy. Him and I, we had a couple run-ins where we had to kind of go to blows a little bit. Then he had a couple run-ins about me with Grant when I wasn't there, and they had to go to blows a little bit. I mean, he just really leans in a certain direction, but he's a great guy. We can all. The name of our show was called Debate the News. We would basically debate, and it wasn't just about the news. I mean, we talk about everything from what's going on in Florida with certain things in children's books, certain things going on at the school, certain people who get certain months and days. So we were just all disagreeing, and coincidentally, Grant and I was always on the same team, and so that made me a target of the Grant Cardone, people that didn't go in that direction. But I'm actually glad to hear this, though. I'm because
it seems like that picture. If you saw it on social, like the one that went out, that's like right after the mediation of those two, with they got their arms around each other. There's the apology from John Legere saying he regretted the stuff that he said and praises Cardone, and then apparently just in this business review article, they said he invested into one of Cardone's deals, the real estate fund that has Bitcoin associated with it. He's obviously taking back his statements. He says he wished he never said them. And so it's a huge win for Grant. And, I don't know.
It also puts people on notice.
Settlement, though.
What do you think about putting people on notice? What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's interesting because of social media, everyone has a voice now, right? Everyone has a voice and a platform. We don't know how many people are listening to certain people, but everyone's got a voice and ability to say something. And I think a lot of people have just gotten lax about saying whatever they want to say. You want to make a point or you really don't like someone, just say something nasty about them, whether there's any truth or reality to it or not. You can't do that. Okay. And I've ran into this with my clients as a lawyer for many years. And I just, even in my own business interactions, is some people will get a really negative view on someone. And there's
100%.
There's companies that face this too, is like they get a customer that says something really nasty about them. And you'll see companies go sue people about a review, like on their website that their customer gives them, because the customer gets so mad. And so they really start inflating what the problem was.
Correct.
And they start making it worse and worse because they're really trying to stick it to this person or this company. Well, then the company goes and sues them, and then because that review's hurting them in their business, they spend all the money, and it really turns out that they inflated it. It really wasn't this. They blew it out of proportion. But people just are getting this emotion, unfortunately, and they start to just say whatever nasty thing they can say. Turns out there's some accountability on this. And so
correct.
I think it's a good lesson for people who are every American really is like,
yes.
If you don't know, don't just say whatever nasty thing you can about someone to go and hurt them. Take the high road, stick to the facts and what you know is really accurate. The other thing too, though, I think for content creators and people who are out there in social media is you've got a higher standard and you've got a lot more risk and stuff on the line. And that's the thing that with John Legere is he was a public figure, had a big audience himself. And so when he says something that's nasty, not based in fact, that's going to cause a lot of damage. And now he becomes a target for a lawsuit. So if you're someone that has a big following, you've got to be even more careful because the stakes are higher now.
And the repercussions or the after effects is much bigger than, say, a review on Yelp. Once again, these are people that can, the Yelp review doesn't have tonality, doesn't have voice inflection, it doesn't have none of those things. But on social audio, there's no marketing that exists that's as big as having a conversation on social audio. People can learn your personality. They can know about your family. They can all types of things from social audio. That's what made it so powerful. All the engagements that was going on in there, and it's just a trend on there. I had a run on, or I had a problem with someone early on the app, and it was the biggest room on the app. Someone said something about me. I wasn't there, and guess who comes in and just shuts the whole thing down? They said I was just on Twitter doing a big room. This is exactly what he said. And he said, I heard some people was talking about Jerry Malcomb, so I closed my room to come help you guys talk about him. And he just went down a laundry list of giving me compliments. And that was Grant Cardone. If he wasn't there, that room with me would have got out of hand. And that's the type of person Grant Cardone is, though. He's always trying to help people. So I'm glad to, I will say this, I'm glad to see that they came together because, you know, John, if you see this, you know I love you, brother. So this is not about me picking sides. I'm just speaking about what went on in the app. And John Legere, like I said, from what I know about him, he's a great person. This guy's helped many people in the app with certain things. It's just, I don't know what made those things go that way. It went from just little paper cuts to like, okay, now I'm going to, you know, it just got really out of hand.
Yeah, you know, I mean, the good news is he was man enough to own up to it and write that apology letter, clear the air, says he regretted it, and looks like they've reconciled and are moving forward, which is cool. I mean, I guess
I hate to put it like this, Matt. I hate to put it like this. Is it manning up? Or, I mean, I mean,
I think it takes a big to
or was it proven wrong?
To recognize that you were wrong, and to correct that when someone else's reputation is on the line, I think takes guts. And saying something about someone that's not true is not cool. Obviously, that's just like that's harmful, But I do think when you know, I got to clear the air. I did something wrong. I got to set this right. I definitely think that's the right thing to do.
Now here comes the Clubhouse coming out of me right now, okay? Because I'm a disciple of the Clubhouse, so it would hit a little different if that would happen before you actually go to trial, and all the discovery comes out, all the evidence comes out, because it's almost like, you know, I mean, it's great, but it doesn't have the same effect.
Yeah.
If it would have happened before discovery, because what if Mr. Cardone had some discoverable items that didn't look too good? This conversation would be completely different.
Yeah. Or you just win his case. I mean, he had the information to disprove all this terrible stuff that Legere said, right? And so he's going to come and win the case and get a 9-figure judgment against Legere. Legere's going to be writing him a $100 million plus check.
Correct.
I mean, that's the level of damages that were alleged here. We're not just talking about like, you know, here, give me a couple of grand here or something. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars on the line. And so Legere's financially incentivized to go do this too.
That's what I'm glad you said it instead of me, because you know we're like it takes a big man to admit when he's wrong, but that man looks that man looks a little bigger before the money is involved. That's all I'm saying.
And who knows what money exchange hands in the settlement? That's the pieces that's going to be confidential. I don't know that. I've been trying to see what's out there on that right now. There's some speculation on it, but
I think it's a big number. I think it's a big number. I think it's
I've heard it is over $100 million, but I don't know.
I think it's a number that will surprise some people if they heard about it, but I don't know.
And you know, it's actually Grant Cardone. You know, his lawyer was Alex Brito, who represented Trump in the ABC News case. If you followed that, and where you know ABC News had to pay Trump $15 million.
Wow.
So that's the guy that Cardone had bringing his case. That guy's, I mean, he's the real deal. So.
Okay.
So, but that, you know, I think that's the stuff that's obviously part of the confidentiality agreement, the settlement. You know, who knows? Maybe it's not, but my guess is there's going to be.
Right.
Legere's not going to want to say what it is, and Grant probably can't.
You know, hopefully we can. This can really. I hope they do get a real friendship from this, because I would love to put the band back together. I would love for us to do some rooms together. We had a lot of late night fun. And Legere, when I say this man enjoyed those rooms, we'd be in those rooms sometimes for 5 hours straight, 6 hours straight. Start at 8 p.m. I mean 6 p.m.
It's crazy.
2 o'clock in the morning. Billionaires, everyone you could think of, and those rooms would just be packed. But it was great conversations. I mean, it was, if you were there, in those days, you'd have been there for several hours too.
Yeah.
You would have been enjoying yourself.
Yeah. I didn't get the Clubhouse craze. I missed it. How did you get Legere and Cardone to be doing the news together and be talking about all the stuff, day-to-day stuff happening?
I don't know if you know this, but we actually did a podcast from that room. But how did I do it? We would just put content together, and Matt, people don't understand how very successful people, they're no different than the person that's working a 9 to 5 that's making $80,000 a year or $60,000 a year. They're the same. They like, I'm gonna have to use this word, they like a little bit of friction. They don't want everything to just be so perfect. Hey, I don't agree with you. It's called intellectual debates.
Yeah.
But certain people have, everyone has different personalities. Some people don't like to lose. Now, the disadvantage that a lot of people had in my room, I was the main host. So when everything Grant stood for against the vax and all that, I was with. So it wasn't like you can shut up the whole room. So Grant had an open mic policy in my room, and he used it. So that kind of, but John Legere had an open mic policy.
Yeah.
And so,
because you could turn them on. I mean, that was your right to bring them up or down. And it's like, all right, these guys, people want to hear what they have to say.
Yes.
And they also had contrary opinions in a lot of areas. So
correct.
So that was, which is what people love, right? I mean,
love it.
And I like that too. Even if I disagree with you, I want to hear the contrary opinion. I want to know what you think too.
I'm gonna have to take you back to Clubhouse for a second, and forgive me. I told you we get a little, so buckle your seatbelt. Grant would say stuff like, "This is white on white crime." He would say stuff like that. So it was just, it was for me, Matt, from where I grew up at before Clubhouse, I went on a mission to try to meet Grant Cardone. I had my assistant call his office. I'll send him DMs. I'll send him emails. Not one thing, not one response. I go to Clubhouse live in the room. This man asked me for my phone number and called me live on stage, and that's how we became friends. Then invited me to his event. 2 months later, I'm on this jet flying from Newark to Florida, and been friends ever since. So to me, it was a magical moment. Then I'm meeting John Legere. There was a room we once did, and you could hear like tears in the room. Because I was known for doing stuff like that, playing music and flirting with the girls and all that type of stuff. So one day I turned on the song Let It Be. And I said, Grant, jump in. And studio quality coming through the mic. And I'm like, let it be, let it be. Then Grant jumped in. Then another person jumped in. Then John Legere jumped in. Maybe 1,000 people in the room all singing Let It Be from the very beginning to the end. We had some wonderful moments, brother. It was just great. Awesome. So I'm glad to see that they're back where they are. And I'm pretty sure that anybody else that's thinking about Cardone and Cardone Capital is going to think a little different. If a big giant of T-Mobile couldn't do it, it may be a little challenge.
Yeah.
But
I think that's Cardone sent a message certainly with the lawsuit. It's got a big win out of it. People got to think twice about what they say and stick to the facts. I mean, that's the thing. If you don't know, you can't go speculate and say whatever you want.
Right. What do you think made him say that though? Do you think he was influenced by some of the social media out there or other people? Like what do you think made him lean that way?
See, that's why I liken him, it's weird. Certain people will attract that, and I think Grant will attract people who will say things because they don't like him.
Right.
And it's the same thing you get with President Donald Trump. People don't like him. There's enough to say about Trump, for example, if you don't like him. Policy stuff, his politics, what he's going to do as president, whether you agree with him or not. But a lot of people just say whatever crap they can about him, and it's not based in fact or is actually reality.
Right.
And these are even prosecutors in certain cases. I'm like, why are you even bringing these cases? These are the weird. Who brings a case for FBI documents from has an FBI raid a former president for documents they took from the Oval Office? And it's like some of this stuff is just so ridiculous.
Right.
But there's people that just don't like him, so they're going to do whatever they can, and so I think Grant gets that because, like Trump, he's unapologetically himself. He said he's going to say what he thinks, and people don't want to debate on the substance. So what do? They get emotional and they say stuff and make stuff up. And I think that's a lot of people fall into that trap. A lot of our friends and family probably does every once in a while.
I have a team.
So they inflate this a little bit and say it to make it sound nastier.
Right. I had a team of people that were my friends on the app that I've become friends with. You know, you meet these people on the app and you actually meet them in real life. And during the election, I went into one of the rooms and they said, "Oh, Jerry's here. Bring him to the stage. We'd like to talk to him." And I'm like, "Oh, wow. You guys are my friends. Of course we're going to talk. What do you think about your friend Grant Cardone, what he's doing?" And I said, "What is he doing?" They said he's supporting Trump. And I said, and they start putting Grant in almost like this racial type of way because he's supporting Trump. And I said to him, I said, "Oh," they said, "what are you going to do about your friendship with him?" Absolutely nothing. I will lose you as a friend before I lose Grant as a friend. You understand what I'm saying? Because you guys are Clubhouse friends. Grant is changing the needle in my life, in real life. Yeah. So they kicked me out of the room. I literally got booted out of the room. I got expelled and suspended, and just because I'm friends with Grant Cardone because he supports Donald Trump.
Yeah,
we're in a crazy world, brother.
Yeah, but the other thing I was going to ask you about Legere, like when he was saying this stuff on that day where this was happening, I mean, like, what was going on with him? I mean, what was he like on that day? Was he just like was he on something? Was he like, was it a particularly like angsty day for him or something? I don't know. You can read. I've read the transcripts in the case. I've heard the audio too.
The thing is, once again, it's almost like saying, what do you think about, you live by the beach and what do you think about hearing the ocean? I'm so used to hearing it. That's what you heard is nothing new to me. Okay. What you heard, I was hearing for the last couple of years, and some of the dialogue may go a little longer, but it was always the same theme. You're a fraud. You're this. You're that. And I just think, you know what I think? I think John Legere was having some moments I just think that he probably was going through some things in his life. Maybe, I don't know. I just think he was getting frustrated mainly because it's easy to get frustrated with Grant. And let's say if it's some other things going on in your personal life, it maybe just came to a head and he just boiled a little bit when he said those, because the man is too smart. He's too successful to not know, even if he had some data on Grant, even if it was true, a man of his level didn't get where he was by doing stuff like that amongst other people, whether you think he's a billionaire, he's not a billionaire. But I'm going to say this, though, in his defense a little bit. It was a lot of people going in saying messy things. A lot of people. Yeah. I appreciate you, giving me the opportunity to ask you these questions because I mainly wanted to know what you thought about the fact that Grant actually had the guts to do this.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have had the guts, because I would have been like, might be something I don't want. Might be one thing I don't want talked about. And
Oh yeah,
so,
because it's war. I mean, you're going into a case. It's war. I mean, Grant would have to go on the stand. He'd have to face depositions. All of his financials and stuff has to get disclosed, which he did. He already had to go through that process. They were at the deposition stage, right? Legere tried to get the case dismissed and lost on the
yes,
dismissal. So they were going forward, and I think Legere was like looking down the barrel of this thing, being like, nah, I'm going to get out of this thing. And, comes to his senses. They resolve it. They settle. It's a big win for Cardone.
big.
And I think people are going to think a little bit twice about, you know what? I don't know. I have to say, even though I think this should send a big message to people that may want to say something nasty about Cardone or anyone else, really, for that matter. Human behavior is just so unpredictable.
It
and
is.
I think it gets back to this emotion thing. People just want to say what they want to say. It makes them feel good. They like to, rather than build people up, tear them down.
Right.
And it's sad. But
You
I
know,
like to
there-
see that people are willing to go out there and hold others accountable for it, and what Grant did in the case to protect his own reputation.
Correct. There's a guy on YouTube. I might reach out to that guy. And I don't know if you know who he is, but he's totally, if someone says they saw Grant Cardone flying in a spaceship, he's going to post it and talk about it that it was facts. And he really leaned into this case. So I might reach out to that guy, but he's definitely not a fan. But one more thing about these claims. People would actually search for lawsuits that Grant was involved in, and they would talk about it in rooms and put his name up for content. Grant would call me and say, watch me go in there. He would literally go in the room and say, hey, let's talk about it. Pull it up. Get your research. Pull up whatever you can find against me and let's talk about it. And he didn't run from anything on the app. And I got to say, based on my observation, he's a stand-up guy.
Yeah,
He's definitely a
Props to that.
stand-up guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's willing to back it up, and that's what happens when you go bring those cases. You're gonna have to go back it up in court. It's gonna be public, and so huge win for him. Hopefully, for him and Legere, they can just move forward, not have to worry about that. They both have bigger things they could be doing with their time, and maybe we'll get some of the details on what the dollar amount was.
Yeah,
Exchange in this settlement agreement.
I'll see if I can leak a hint of it on my story. Okay, well I appreciate it, brother, and let's stay in touch, and we'll see if there's a part 2. I'm going to talk to some of my inside people, and if I have a little tea for you, I'll definitely reach out to you.